Good morning, guys. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. So today I wanted to play Northern Realms Witchers for 10.3, and the reason why is because one card got a major buff, believe it or not. It doesn't seem like much, but it's actually quite a bit. So before it would impact both sides of the board, now it just deals with the allied side of the board. So it really helps us get the value from Coën that we otherwise wouldn't have if we also had the chance of maybe boosting their units as well, right? It could actually work in negative ways if we do it the other way around. So we have Coën looking pretty sharp here, and we'll get to him when the time's right, but for now we'll start at the top of the list. So we have Amphibious Assault, which is basically just like a staple in pretty much every Northern Realms deck. I think we can all agree. It has Echo status. We can play a Northern Realms unit from your deck with a provision cost of 9 or less and boost it by 1 for each provision below the limit. So you could pull a lot of different cards here. More often than not, you're going to be pulling something like a Griffin Witcher or a Griffin Witcher Adept. Those are kind of like my two go-tos. If you're looking to get some carryover or hand consistency towards the end of the round, you might want to go for something like a Griffin Witcher Mentor, right? Pull that out, draw something with that, boost a card, you draw it by 2, so it kind of helps with that. And if you're looking for just a point slam because you drew everything else, maybe you pull the Scytheman at this point and stack it at the end of the row. But you'll see me more than often, like I said, fetch for one of the staple bronzes here, being the Griffin Witchers or the Adepts. I just find that they're really good pulls with this. Coën, Margarita, those are also exceptions, right? But there you go. So Erland of Larvik, again, there's very few decks that I find really benefit from having this card. Archgriffin deck's pretty good too. Maybe like some kind of Commandos deck could work, but you know, Witchers just feels pretty comfortable. Boost all allied units in your deck by 1, Adrenaline 3, also gain immunity. Order, remove boosts from all units in deck, then boost this unit by the same amount. So you could use it one of two ways, right? You can play it maybe with Adrenaline, and then you can click the order as like a finisher, or you can just use it as carryover, which is what I normally do, and it seems just fine, right? You get all these units boosted, and obviously there's some payoff by having everything boosted from cards like the Scytheman. It's pretty simple concept to it, so I would like to use it that way. Now, Geralt Axii was a little bit of a wild card. So before I had Igni, okay, and I'm not opposed to having Igni in the deck now. I just felt like this was more of a utility card. Whenever there's like a new patch, I kind of like to have more utility just because I never know what I'm going to be up against. So what I mean by that is we can purify offensively, we can purify defensively, we can get the tall punish that we need from, again, one of their units on their side, right? But we don't have to worry about setting something up to destroy with the Igni because maybe it gets difficult. But if you're finding that you're running into a lot of Swarm with a lot of common base powers, then maybe you can put in Igni. But I just felt like this was pretty comfortable for me, and I have no complaints about it. Some ideas are basically being able to get around the defender and lock what's behind it. That's kind of an idea, or get around the defender and boiling what's behind it, right? Like, certainly different options with it. But let's say we go super tall and they poison something, or let's say they lock the Keldar or something like that. Maybe we want to turn it back on. We have those options as well. So there's that. Vesemir basically boosts all Witchers we control by 1 with Adrenaline 4. Also boosts Witchers in hand and deck. So there's no reason not to play this card with Adrenaline. That's kind of what you want to wait for, right? Because otherwise you're not really getting its provision's worth of value. So make sure you play it with Adrenaline 4 and get the most carryover possible. It's okay if you don't use this card in round 1 because you could still use it, you know, in late round 3 once the whole board's been filled. It's basically the same thing, but I kind of like just using it as early as possible so that we can play all game with the carryover opposed to just waiting till the end of the game, right? Helps keep engines alive so that we can get more value from them. And Geralt Quen, another card that was impacted in the newest patch, right? With this here, they changed the Adrenaline from 3 to 4, which is very impactful when it comes to anything that plays Witchers, right? So play a Witcher from deck, Adrenaline 4, give it shield. So that directly translates to a couple things, right? Kaldar being super important here, and we get the added shield value from these ones if we want to play them at 4, right? There's lots of cool stuff. If we want to play Cohen, well, we can go and do that, give him a shield, so maybe we can float him and greed it out, right? It just gives us a little bit more utility with that, and I think it's great. Skellige was another good example when I played them the other day, where Adrenaline 4 was really helpful with the Quen, so definitely worth looking at. Kaldar did get a little bit of a rework during the patch of 10.2. However, I felt like it was maybe, you know, necessary to just like continue to run him because it's a good card, right? Especially with the Quen update. Now, whenever you play a special card, spawn a Witcher student in the row, Adrenaline 4 at the end of your turn, spawn a Witcher student in the row. So it'll do it basically whenever I play a special, so I could put this down early and not feel too bad about it, and we can just try and engine off some specials. So let's say I play this like as a first turn play, and then I just like Crystal Skull it, then I could go in and like John Amphibious, I could take like target practices and boiling oils, like that type of stuff in the first round, and just like casually add to the row, and then when the adrenaline kicks in, it'll keep going, which is pretty nice. So I tried it a bit of both ways, and I felt like it was pretty good. It does give them more time to answer it when you play it early. However, if you do get a few tokens off anyways, it's still pretty good. It's about the same thing as doing it later and getting it answered anyways, right? It just makes rolling out the hand a little bit smoother, because before we had so many cards with adrenaline that we didn't want to play, and it made some turns like pretty awkward. So again, at least you have that option. Natalis is one of our cards for consistency here, right? There's a lot of things that could brick here. Like, we want to pull so many different cards, but like we have these 3 that can brick, you know. This isn't tutorable. Like, this only tutors Witchers. Well, everything's a Witcher except for like a couple things, you know what I mean? We need to have a card like John to help secure Amphibious, to help secure some of our bronze cards. I think it just really helps. So having that there is great utility, and overall we've got the 1-2 tutors, you know, and I guess you have the thinning package, and that seems to be enough. For the bricks, obviously the mentors help, and I feel like 2 of them is necessary when I play Witchers, because I noticed that the bricks are reoccurring. It's not like it just happens once and we mulligan it back and we don't have to deal with it again. We mulligan this one back, and then we get this one, and then we try and take a mulligan on this one, and we pull into this. Like, it gets kind of annoying, so having this is like ideal for that. Leo's one of our big payoff cards, and honestly, I don't mind using him in round 1, and I also don't mind using him in round 3. I just find if I save him for round 3, more than often he gets answered, whereas round 1, I tend to get the round win. Now, boost self by 1 for every Witcher you control. Simple enough, right? We have every Witcher we control is quite a few, and obviously we're going to be spawning things with target practice. We're going to be spawning things with Kaldar, so you got to take those in consideration as well. Those count as Witchers. So this card is known to be playing for 15 points. It could play for 20 points, right? It really just depends on your board state, but you can imagine it would get pretty crazy in like a long round 3, this at the end, right? So definitely worth the provisions here. Again, these just thin. You play them on Adrenaline 4, they thin. If you don't play them on Adrenaline 4, you really just brick it, and it's a sad story, but good when you have them. I don't like playing the trio in other decks. I really dislike it in Northern Realms, because we can boost them all by 1 with the Erland, and then we can boost them all again by the Vesemir, and that's what makes it kind of worth it, right? These coming out for minimum 15 points, and then obviously having the additional payoff potentially from the Cohen, because now they're all at 5. You know, we can boost Cohen up to 5 easily, and then we can get that extra boost going on there, and we can kind of put these in line maybe with some of our adepts, like, you know what I mean? That's where it starts to get really good. So that's that. Margarita for the lock. Talked about Cohen here. You'll see him in play today. Boiling oil, just because I want to have a little bit more control, right? The damage by 5 could change the game if there's that one engine that's pretty annoying. Talked about just Griffin Mentors for carryover and hand consistency. Really important. Now, Griffin Witcher is probably like my favorite Northern Realms Witcher card. Damage an enemy unit by 1 with a cooldown of 1. Adrenaline 3 at the end of your turn. Damage a random enemy unit by 3 and lock itself. So, a couple different things. Like, I have Fortune Teller here so that we can give this Veil so that it doesn't lock itself and it's doing 3 points per turn damage, right? But then, in the event that these get answered before Adrenaline, we still have this for the Doomed ability, right? Give Doom to a unit, so we can get rid of their carryover card as well. Fortune Teller is also really good for cards like the Cohen if we want to float, assuming it has a shield or something. And then, of course, let's say Keldar, right, would be a really good thing to give Veil. So it has that utility, and it's a nice little tech I find is really good with Northern Realms Witchers. I haven't loved Fortune Teller in a lot of different decks, but this is one where it just seems to have a really good place. So that's that. And we talked about target practice for the Swarm, Lyrian Siphon for the payoff. We have 2 here, plus the extra one we get when we use our leader charges. So tons of point slam towards the end of the game. And Adepts to help keep things safe, right? Control always prevails. This card actually does really well against Deadeye Ambush because we keep flipping everything back and forth and putting shields on it, so they're not getting, like, really good pings. Like, it makes a lot of their waylays play for 3 points because they're hitting armor, or a shield rather, so it's really cool stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much the deck. I had a lot of fun playing it. I got 4 games for you guys today in Pro for reference, and we'll show you how it plays out. Now, I don't think that this is going to be meta, but I do think that it's going to be incredibly fun to play. I had a blast playing it for the 4 or 5 games that I played, and it's just really satisfying watching the opponent scramble to try and remove all of our engines and our point slams, and then we just stay resilient and just keep putting them down, and then, you know, it pays off at the end. It's a very high pressure, high reward type play when the meta always tends to favor control. So if you like playing on the edge of your seat, definitely give this one a try. And if you enjoy the content that you see today, don't forget to sub to the channel. Thanks again for 6K. Now we're pushing for 10. I've got big goals in mind, and I did do a sponsored stream yesterday, or video I should say. If you guys haven't seen that one, go check that one out as well. And speaking of streaming, that's something that I'm still thinking about on the back burner, guys. Don't worry about that. If you guys want to see a stream on Twitch, you could follow me on that platform as well. And one of these days, sooner than later, I'm going to get back to that platform as well. So keep that one in mind. But for now, let's get into the gameplay, and I have post-game commentary for you guys today. Alright, so for the first game here, we've got Nilfgaard Double Cross, and by now the deck's been played so much that it's pretty easy for me to understand kind of the sequencing that they're going to have when we play against them, and where we need to bleed and stuff like that. And what it mainly comes down to for me is basically trying to win round 1, or win round 1 at 1 card down. You know, as long as we get the round win, round control, it's important. And then just go into round 2 and just pretty much try to extract as many good cards as we can from the opponent, and potentially the leader ability, because if we go into a short round 3 and they have leader intact and they have a couple hero golds, we're probably going to lose. If we go into a long round 3 and they have both of those things as well, we're probably going to lose, because they have multiple tall punish, and it's very difficult to just win in those situations. And of course, them being able to put spies on our side of the board and take up row spaces, and then them being able to use like our strategy against us a little bit, it's kind of bad, right? But yeah, that's basically it. As they take their first turn here, I recorded these games this morning, and I was gonna do this video like live commentary, but then I started to like have a little bit of a headache, and it turned into like a huge cluster. Like by noon, I was in bed and just trying to turn off all the lights and just like relax, and then basically like in and out of napping from like noon to like 1:30 a.m. Now it's like 3 in the morning. Don't worry about me though, I'm fine. It's just that once in a while I get like really bad headaches, and when they're gone, and we see them next time kind of thing. So the last time I was complaining about headaches was maybe like 2-3 months ago, if you guys remember that. So I can live with that. We just jam down cards here, right? They answer one, we put another. You love to see Blightmakers come down on an empty board, by the way, especially with the Mage Assassin getting the nerf. I don't think it really affected Nilfgaard too much. If you think about it, I don't think the 5 provision thinning affected really any faction too much, because every faction runs their thinning. And, you know, like some factions already had the thinning at 5 points. Like, think about monsters, for example. So it just kind of puts it like more on an even playing field. Scoia'tael doesn't really even have that opportunity unless you're playing certain decks. So I think it's fair. The Skellige is probably the one that feels the worst, just because the Tursics, the Skirmishers, right? They have the condition of having to draw them and then throw them away, so that gets a little bit more difficult. But yeah, quick win here, round 1. I don't think they had the proactivity to play on, right? And if you notice, they haven't taken the Calviate yet, so it's a little bit unfortunate for us because I want to go straight into gold cards on a bleed, but we're looking at our deck here and it's looking like, okay, we pretty much have it all, right? We have the trio for like a short round 3, couple little things in deck, but most of it's in our hand. The only tough part is that we didn't get to take our carryover plays in round 1, so Erland wasn't a thing, Vesemir wasn't a thing, so now those are a little bit slower tempo plays here. I'm opting to go for Keldar just as an engine and see how it works. This is kind of my experiment playing it this way. Like actually an untested thing. Obviously it gives them plenty of time to remove it, but we have a couple Warfare cards in hand. It doesn't have to be Warfare, but they're special still, so it's going to proc that. So that's like kind of bad. I want to get some payoff from it, so we'll start to kind of engine here a little bit, right? What I'm afraid of, though, is them basically just cracking at that and taking a coup at that. So you're going to see like a bit of a fight for trying to keep the base power like decent. Yeah, and to think about it this way, like, Turncoat would be just a good change in this deck to make the Blightmaker play work. I think Turncoats are a little bit underrated. Just one last little payoff here, and I take this because I'm thinking coup, right? They're so fixated on bringing that power of this card down, so... Mind you, they could still coup it, but what I mean by that is like Deathblow coup is even worse. That's just bad. So, it doesn't make a huge difference, let's say, if we have like a row full of things with shields, as far as, you know, the adrenaline effect of the Griffin Witcher, but if there's a way to remove that, we might want to. We might want to lock it too, just before it gets kind of too much value. You know, they have quite a few cards left. Now, I'm playing Erland back row just because a couple things. Like, I want to stack that row in case we need to use a leader and get the most value from it. I also want to... I'm going to flip it too. Like, doesn't matter where we put it to flip it, but I think it's worth a flip. Now, it's a good time to take Vesemir here. I thought I had those turned off. Thanks for the follow, I guess. Yeah. Maybe I was just testing to see if notifications still worked. But it's getting to the point here where we have to start thinking about getting out of the rounds. Every turn is kind of, you know, the thought process of that. We can continue to flip these tokens and, you know, go about it that way. It's like a little unfortunate though, because obviously like locking that Griffin a bit earlier would have saved us a few points. It's just like, do you really want to use the one and only lock on that 1 point card? Like, it's something I had to really decide here, and I'm thinking like, at this point maybe it makes a difference, you know, at least like before the adrenaline. So we're doing okay here. I'm thinking, alright, maybe we can even go as far as taking carryover with our other bronze in hand and save the golds for round 3. Like, that's like a preferred situation. I don't really want to go card down though. Little 5-point leader. So we might find ourselves in a spot where they decide to try and defend the card, right? That would be pretty good for them here. To get the lock, that's kind of a big deal. Flip a token, why not? I'm still feeling pretty confident. We play it here now because we know that that row is probably going to fill up. Alright, we got a couple turns left, couple more spaces, plus our leader. So we don't really want to play on the back row anymore. And this is what I was talking about in the beginning, like, just those high pressure games. Like, we're 2 cards down right here. And we're only 12 points ahead, but you just have to keep pushing and just like believing that, you know, what you're doing is good. And a lot of payoff's going to come from that short round 3 for us, I think. Got another follower. Nice. But yeah, for the sake of the videos, I'm going to turn those notifications off. Seeing Keldar there is actually pretty bad for them. Like, the Terra Nova is like a really big push. I have to decide here. Like, I could potentially go into the Coën, is what I'm looking at. Right? Because look at all the... look at all the 5s. You see the idea? I'm just trying to decide if it's worth that last leader charge. It might be. And unfortunately, we have to play the Scytheman on the melee road just because we're gonna fill up. But like, okay, Coën played for 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 10 boosts, plus the 5 points it played for us, 15 points for 6 provisions, right? You can't tell me that's not bad, you know? Whereas like a Berengar, it plays for 12 points, but it's tall. And it has the condition, which is has to be on a row with a Witcher, so it could be, like, it should just be fine, but I don't know. Coën just feels kind of safe. They kind of messed up the vibe here with the back row. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like all-in situation. Like, I want to. And come to think of it, I maybe should have. But I'm just expecting double tall removal. That's why. And, like, you know, it's tough. Because they'd be able to flip student there, get the 2 points, get assimilate off 1, 2, 3 engines, potentially, right? 4 engines, actually. One thing I didn't account for, though, is the Joachim. So if I was to play Axii there, I could have maybe reset the Artorias, and then they would have only been able to play the Yen. No, it doesn't make a difference. Because either way they had Yen access, right? So the Joachim would have been able to be played, so maybe we just leave it like that. But the short round 3 game's kind of what we want here, and I think that this hand's going to be fine. I can't run the risk of bricking anything with another mulligan. I think that that's a losing condition, so we just have to play it out. One thing I'm worried about, though, is having this, the Keldar coming down. That's bad. And sure enough, we just get that little bit of carryover. It's like a same round carryover, which is really sweet. This is just like one deck where that really works out. Pull them all here. And they won't be able to get the same sort of value from it because I don't think they're going to be able to pull what's in their deck that they boosted. Now we just slam trio. Doesn't matter about placement at this point. I'm just going to separate the rows a little bit, separate the points. That's about it. And couple things. So I could go Leo last. I could go Leo second to last. And it really comes down to maybe they have a boost. Maybe they don't. And I was thinking, I think in this game that maybe they might have had something to boost. Because it just feels kind of bad putting down Axii for the 6 points, right? However, let's say they took muzzle. Okay, it was muzzle regardless. So it doesn't... okay, actually it's not bad. They would have muzzled the Axii, which kind of would have sucked, right? So that was the right move to make. And moving on to the second game here, we got Northern Realms Inspired Zeal. And this one's actually a mages matchup. It's my first time playing against mages for the new patch, and I'm convinced that with exception to the Frost matchup, they're actually still pretty good. I think Frost would handle it quite well. I'm kind of just playing this game half-hearted though, because coming into this match, I don't think we have a chance. And decks like what we're playing here that really depend on our units surviving also depend on mages not being like in the forefront of the meta. So, you know, if you start to face a lot of mages, then it could be time to take a break from Witchers, but like I said, this is the first time I've ran into it, so. First play of the game pretty much confirms it, because there's a lot of different versions going around, right? Like, I also had my suspicions maybe that it was Siege. And that's probably like the worst thing they can roll. So, first play of the game takes away my first play of the game, right? Like, I'm thinking, okay, now I can't even play my Adept, because they're going to go and rip the shield off everything and just get the passive 2 points per turn. So, it's almost like that roll gives them the round to an extent. Silencing the phone here. At least we got rid of one, right? But they're gonna get the second one off that with the chapter, right? Then they're gonna have another one they can play. So there's no shortage of these there. That's pretty much our one lock out of the way. I just feel like we want to remove the control stuff more than we want to remove their boost stuff, because I do have one answer as a tall punish, and I also have my own strategy I have to do, right? We have to boost all our stuff up, so we can't afford to be taking all that kind of damage.
History lies buried here. Dark clouds gather over Temeria.
Now we don't want Death Blow, because otherwise it really takes away from our strategy here. We're trying to remove that. So we'll hit it while it's nice and tall. And, of course, it's so easy for them to just keep going. We're going to need like 7 turns to remove that. And at this point, you have to start to think, okay, is giving that Doomed better than giving our Witcher Veil, right? And I'm taking these before the Adrenaline just because I have nothing else to play and I need to play. Like, I just kind of want them to concede, and then we'll just take the round. Like, that was kind of the idea. Because I'm hoping that if we could stack a short round 3, and maybe they have a couple alumni and they end up boosting like the same thing a couple times very tall, they have all their eggs like in one basket kind of thing, and maybe that could be like a win condition. I'm just trying to explore like what options we have at this point, because ever since mages were a thing, like a real big thing on the ladder, I haven't really been playing Witchers often, so I'm still figuring out the matchup too. And at least if we play the next one for carryover Witchers, we're getting we're actually getting the boost on it, right? Still chipping away at that student though.
Recipe says, cut the apples like so.
We took it, we got it, perfect, 1 point, 1 card down. They have tons of value with the student. The only thing they don't have is actually the Zeal for the alumni yet, because they haven't pulled into the range rows, right? They need the Artusa student online, otherwise, not like it matters, like, we can't remove it anyways. It's kind of nice to see the actual Adepts being able to be played this round. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would you push here? You can't push here. We gotta push here, though. Like, we need Kaldar to, like, actually carry us, you know? Otherwise, I think we're just in trouble.
The day is nigh.
They're probably happy about that.
Unlike some, my dear Cohen, I polish my quill, not my sword.
No, with the pendulum. I'm much better at that.
So imagine taking Quen off that. Like, if I had Quen into the Kaldar, that would have been pretty gross.
I'm on it.
At this point, I'm thinking, okay, look, I got a couple bronze cards in hand. Well, one, and then one carryover card. Like, what could we get? You know? Like, what are they willing to trade at this point? That's what it comes down to. So they play it on range, so they can't use it. It breaks a shield. I'm kind of happy with that. We'll just go do the rotation here on the, 1 and 2. Put that shield back on. I think they should have played that student on melee, but
Much left of that work.
now, a couple things. If they take Amphibious, we'd probably consider not doing that.
Wager I can cast from with me foot.
I'm just jamming this here because, like I said, what else do you have? I'm looking at the deck right here, like it's actually pretty good. You know, we can pretty much play all of it. Or most of it.
Die by your side. A pleasure, a privilege, an honor.
When they're sitting on 8 points already, it doesn't really feel like we're going to be getting a good trade if we use something like Amphibious there. So we have Amphibious leader, and they have the card advantage. So I don't know if it's like really like that tilted, you know what I mean? That goes. That's probably the hand. It sucks we don't have Quen, but we can go Amphibious into Coën. And by the way, I think I actually made a little bit of a misplay in this last round. I'll point it out when I see it. Yeah, it was this game. It cost us a couple points. Just kind of doing an inventory check here. What have they played? So they have like the Gerhardt, they have the additional alumni, and they've got the Shawnee and all that, so that's unfortunate.
Brother of mine.
And the fact that they took the alumni and range row is actually perfect for what we're thinking, right? Because we want to go and reset something. That's what I'm talking about right here.
Rubbish in, rubbish out, he said. I'll start again. Not I.
Don't teach your grandma to suck eggs.
I see a lot of 5s. Now Cohen's a 5, but when we take Cohen out with I wish they would have boosted any of the other two. When we take Cohen out, he's going to be playing for what here? The 8. So what we should have done, well, what we can do right here is we click Erlen, it gets to 8, yeah? Or 9 rather. And then we boost that to 9. I should have taken the other 2 leader charges here, and I didn't. I decided to just not greet it. and get the boost by 6. But if I would have played the other Scytheman, it would have come out at 9 points. We would have been able to boost the Scytheman by 6. So trust me, I realized that as soon as I ended the turn, like, why didn't I just not click or wait, like, or just take leader that turn? It was pretty much to just greed out the extra unit on the row, because it was boosted as well with the Axii, but then we lost the point anyways because they would have used the offensive alumni. So yeah, feeling pretty bad about it. The good part though is that the points from Erland are defended with the immunity status, so it's kind of nice. I'm thinking that we probably have a win here regardless, but you know, they somehow seem to find like 20-30 points in their last turns here and there, so it's tough. In this case we got lucky, but that's how you want to take the Coën next time. And moving on to the next one here, we got Syndicate off the books, and I missed the intro, guys. Like, I scrambled to hit record with this one, but we got it just in time. Coën goes back. And you see, like, Coën was pretty consistent. Like, we would have had the 12 boost off the Coën in that game as well. So that was just a misplay by me. Whereas the first game we got the full value, second game, so like the consistency is there. I've been seeing some off the books Firesworn hybrid decks lately. They've been pretty interesting. Which I actually don't think's a bad idea. And the reason why is because, like, the deck doesn't have a problem spawning cards anymore. Like, there's a lot of really effective ways to spawn cards. And so maybe less expensive tributes could be good and doing, you know, a little bit more control stuff. But I do like the synergies with, obviously, the spawn leader with the Fallen Knights, the spawn leader with the scribes. You know, it just sort of like immediately gives you that payoff, which is kind of nice, and you don't have that same effect with this deck. It kind of feels like this deck is like the stockpile equivalent of Northern Realm Siege. You know what I mean? Like, it's got like extra utility, but it doesn't have like the tempo that like Inspired Zeal would have, for example. Yeah. Taking my shot again at putting Keldar down first round. You know, I have to say that's definitely a smart tactic. While the deck is swarming for itself, it's also dishing some good swarm, like anti-swarm stuff, right, with those mages. And I've totally forgot about that being a thing until they played it, and I'm like, oh no. Like, this could be bad for our big row boosts. So already I'm kind of skeptical about this one here. I decided to go ahead and take that boiling oil just because I feel like I almost called it a rebuke again. But I feel like, you know, that's going to give them some good value throughout the round, right? 24. Honestly, we're actually pretty good. I want to remove one engine at a time. We still have Punish for the Sol if we need it, right, with the Axii later on. But for now, you know, we just get Keldar online, 2 points per turn. Next turn we get 6 points if we do play. I mean, we don't have to play here. We just pass on that, we get 29, yeah? So a little win on even's pretty good. I think they might have been a little bit late with the Sol. I would try and get it down sooner. It's worth so much more than 10 points when you play them early. I'm holding on to Fortune Teller, hoping that something good might happen. Now, here's the problem, okay? I want to bleed bad, but we have like a really bad hand for bleeding. Like, it's all trash. It's all late game stuff and carryover stuff we can't play yet. So this does happen, and this is how you're gonna have to deal with it. You know, these come in clutch. Even when we don't get the Adrenaline 4 payoff, at least we could fix the hand a little bit, right? They take a thin. Like, I'm pulling all the stops here. Like, we gotta play sensible moves, but we also have to, like, not overcommit. So, you know, diving into the carryover stuff seems appropriate. Again, you'll find the sequencing with this deck between games is often similar, but sometimes will come down to like the draws that you have. So I'm expecting Cobb. I'm kind of trying to see Cobb, and that's like why we want to play. Now, here's obviously a chance for us to get double last say, but I say nah. You know, I still want to see what I want to see, so that hurts. And here's another chance for us to get it right. We're tied at this point. We could just pass, but no. We got to keep going, guys. Put down the Leo, 44. We just crank that a little bit. Like, I want to see commitments, you know? And another reason for us here is because they haven't spent, like, any of the leader. And to me, that's a little bit scary. Of course, they have a tin boy, right? That's the only thing I wasn't expecting. So now I have to decide. Okay, do I want to just take... Like, I could just take that double last say, you know? At least tin boy's out of the way. That's a nice little play. I think that would get some really good value in, obviously, Deadeye Ambush or Firesworn. However, tin boy won't be as good as maybe double mages, right? Mages are cheaper. Tin boy takes tribute 7 and does like everything on the board, but I feel like 3 adjacent with a tribute 3 is pretty good. 5 base power, 5 provisions, 2 for 10. It's tough. That's probably the hand. Cohen's not really doing anything here. So Cohen would have been around 2 or bust card. Cohen's really good when we have our leader, right? So it's not that Cohen's not good here, it's that I made him not good here. So that's fine. Like, if we were trying our best to make him work and that's what we got, then I'd feel like there's a problem. Now, I think locking the King of Beggars here would be kind of foolish, I guess. Just because we want to make sure, of course, we pull that card. Not that it matters. We have no way of getting it back or anything like that, but... I'm starting to lose hope. A little bit. Just a little bit. I think we float this and not take it. Maybe make them think it was a mistake. I want to see if they have another spender, obviously, right? Not really. So everything's going to be going into Cobb here, which... Again, I don't think they're expecting Axie. I think that maybe they're expecting like a Yurden or Igni, maybe. But Axie just does it here. And just locking them to show we got answers to the problems, and that takes the game. And we got one more game for today. This is going to be Deadeye Ambush, Scoia'tael. I did 2 versions of Deadeye this season. I'm going to be taking a nice long break from it. I'm happy with where I left it, and if I do return to Elves this season, it'll be maybe towards the end, and it'll be like a completely different variant. It won't be the classic Swarm. It'll probably be something like Traps, if anything. Like, yeah, or Waylays. Like, we'll try something a bit different, and then we can compare the two. Big stretch. The fact that it's 3:30 in the morning starting to kick in. I'm surprised I sat down like this without a coffee. I slept so much, I feel just like pretty good right now, you know what I mean? But the idea is, okay, I gotta stay up until like 10-11 p.m. tonight. Like, that's the plan. And then if I go to bed off that, then my schedule should be back in order. It should be comfortable, you know? And by not taking too much screen time today, it'll also help me feel good. Make sure I don't get another headache or something like that anytime soon. Notice how they just go ahead and jam that scenario, right? Round 1. That, to me, is usually an indication that traps are happening, but it's not always the way, right? I actually don't mind playing commandos from hand. I just feel like if commandos got a buff, like you see how commandos are 3 base power, and then Passiflora Peach, for example, is 4 base power. Like, that's the problem with commandos. You know what I mean? If they were 4, they'd turn into a 5 on the first turn, which would then make you have to use 5-point removal cards opposed to 4, which makes the card 10 times better. Because then the card trades up a little bit, whereas before, you can remove it with a 4 provision card, get rid of an engine with a good ceiling, and you'd be moving up to a 5 provision card, you know, if they increase the base power. So that's a request. I think he did good with Elves, CDPR, but just that one little touch could be game-changing. Because it does have a condition, right? If you only control Elves, so you still have to, like, do something to make that, you know, happen, which makes it so that this card wouldn't be played in every Scoia'tael deck. It would just be ones that have tons of Elves. And I can't keep up with that type of points. I think we're okay. The fact that we got Feign Death and the Yavin and the Ailerin and all that type of stuff out of the way is pretty good. I think they have a lot left, though. It could just go in so many different directions, so I honestly don't know how to play it at this point. Like, they could be doing tons of waylays, they could be doing tons of traps, they could just be doing regular swarm with none of that. But I do fear either way, like a huge Deadeye ambush, and it could be a problem. And confirmed.
This is our land, Tuan. You're not welcome here.
So the problem here is that I have to respect that card. And if I don't lock it here, and they start just like cranking waylays, they're going to be getting such good trades for the waylays, so I have to go and lock it here. And the fact that we have Margarita like in deck, not hand, means we waste the last amphibious to get her. And that was an incredibly expensive turn for us. Right? When maybe the plan for them initially was still to just take that carryover with, you know, and mulligan back those waylays. So I feel kind of bad about that. But it's one of those things. If you don't do it, they take advantage of it. If you do it, they take advantage of it. So we're kind of just stuck thinking about that. Coen at base power, we've got Force. And we're going to be getting lots of Force too from the Adepts, right? When they flip over the tokens off the Keldar, everything we get is turning into a 4. And all the trios in around the 4 range. So you know, Cohen might be actually like a boost all type situation. Makes you wonder though, like, we could just play something like that. Here's the thing, like, I'm expecting waylays to just come cranking out, and I kind of want to like make some of them trade down. So, you know, putting down Keldar here would give them really good value. Like, they would just use 2 waylays and remove it. Whereas like putting down these adepts might slow down the strat. We put down the 2 of them there. We can take like the target practice and then just kind of flip another one, you see what I mean, and just keep doing that whole thing as long as we can. The Vriads are actually pretty good now. Basically tells me that they were able to get rid of pretty much like all their special cards in hand. And so you might be wondering why, but I still think I'm running out of things to play here, so I have to just do that. And if they're gonna play the waylays, they're gonna play the waylays. But I flipped that over there so that there's less stuff for them to hit. I value the shield more than I value the 1 point, especially with the Cohen at 4. They take the lock on it, which is unfortunate, right?
Retrieve the bolt. I know. I'm on it.
Problem is I don't necessarily want to take target practice here because we don't have the order. So it could just be like taking Quen.
Let's get this over with. Not your lucky day.
And I thought about doing it in like a reverse order too, like taking the Axii on the Keldar and doing all that. But for what it's worth, like it still would be at the 6 points, like the 5 plus the armor, and it's playing on a row that's pretty full. So I felt like, you know, if we just go ahead and take things the way they are here, we should just be okay. Now, it's a tough choice. I'm thinking, do I just go and flip the 2 or the 6? Obviously, flipping the 6 is losing 2 points right now, but we could just boost it so that 2 waylays doesn't take it down. It requires a bit more, but it still gives them a pretty good target here. And then maybe if they chip it down a bit, like we could potentially save it for the Cohen. You know what I mean?
Act your age. At 2
Here it comes.
behave like you were barely washed. Showed us the way. For the daisy of the valley.
Still not bad, right? We boosted it, we saved it with the 4. Now we can just stack these here. You know, one thing that I forgot about 100%, because obviously with this deck we want a row stack. That's our plan. But the Torville, like, would just clean up here, right? Because they can use both conditions of damage ends by 2 and all by 1. Now, fortunately, a lot of them have shields, but it still hurts. Like, look, you know, I still feel bad about that. Now, when they take the ambush with the Vernaciel, that's a big problem, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, maybe the window for taking leader is closing, right? We might have to jam like the Scytheman leader thing soon, or the Cohen leader thing soon. By the way, my stomach dropped when, like, when I saw them starting to take those charges. I'm like, oh no, the ambush is coming. We're down by like 20 points. Like, you know how difficult it is for me to, like, I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way. Like, you play a game, you're feeling good. It's all vibes. And then, like, it starts to go in this direction when you, like, started to get some confidence from it. But at this point, like, we've come this, like, 10, 12 minutes. Like, I might as well just play it to see where it goes. That's kind of good. The fact that they clear a space there means we've got space for leader. Nice, nice. The problem is I want to take leader, but I also want to take Cohen. So we'll do that. I don't think I messed it up. Or actually, I could have gotten one more. Wait. If one of you guys can pause that, because I can't pause that right now. The second to the left, adept there. We could have used another. We could have used leader on that first, and gotten the 2 extra points off the Cohen, right? You know, I think this game was winnable. It's just the way it goes sometimes. We tied, I'll take it, but I think we could have won it. We'll see you guys tomorrow.